Welcome to the Hibbing Economic Development Authority regular meeting. Today is May 12th. It is 5:05 p.m. Everybody's in attendance today except for President Brock, Member Schweiberger, and Member Egan. I'd like to call the Heda meeting to order. No additions or deletions. Can I get an approval for the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion made by Mayor Heda, support by Member Hoffman-Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. Approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Support. I would like to support.
Motion made by Mayor Heda, support by Member Cameron. Consent agenda?
You have a vote on that.
Oh, we have to vote on that, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carried. Okay. Consent agenda. Affirm Economic Development Loan Fund as of April 30th, 2025 in the amount of $1,278,210.25. Approve disbursements for the month of April in the amount of $656,245.49. Set the next regular and workshop meeting of Heda for Monday, June 9th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the City Hall Council Chambers. Authorize the Heda Board to attend the Land Use Chapter Update Open House on Monday, May 19th, 2025 in the second floor City Hall Conference Room. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. President, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read and published.
I'll support that.
Motion made by members Hoffman-Sockman and supported by Mayor Heda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Presentations will turn over to our Community Director, Betsy. She can go over all the ones that we got going on.
Evening, Mr. Vice President, members of the Commission. Tonight, our first presentation is from Hibbing Parents Nursery School with an update on the project that we have been working with them on. Pia Grosbach, one of the, are you the Assistant Director there now, Pia? Director at the Child Care is here tonight to present. Just as a reminder, last July we started investigating this as a site for redevelopment with the news that the Sunrise Bakery was intending to sell and move out of the facility. We, over those several months, we took several developers through it. We did some investigation. We worked with New History to look at different uses for the building. And then in November, we started working with the Child Care and brought a resource team together to help them investigate a new site if this childcare or if the school site became not available for their purposes. So we have been working with them for about 6 months, along with a large resource team, which Pia will talk about tonight in her update. And then she will have the rest of the update on how the project is going from here on their side and all of the things, the items that they're ticking off on their agenda. One other reminder, we did hire WSB and Faye Gillespie as a relocation consultant to also assist the child care with this process so that we can make sure that we're following the uniform relocation rules for a city purchasing a site with a tenant. So at this time, I will invite Pia up to the podium and she can, along with Sarah, who is with her as well, and I'll have them introduce themselves, give a little presentation about where they're at and what's happening with their project, and then you can ask questions at that time. Thanks, ladies.
Hi, I am Pia Grosbach. I have just taken over as a director for the Hibbing Parents Nursery School. This is Sarah Krauth. She has been the previous director, and with all that's happening, she is still around to help me out.
I was done in October, but I'm still here because I can't leave her with this mess.
And I also wanted to say this is not my thing, so if I seem nervous, it's why I work with children. So a little bit about the Hibbing Parents Nursery School. It's been a long-standing nonprofit preschool, childcare, and after-school program serving families in Hibbing and the surrounding area since 1965. Our current enrollment is 31 children, 5 of them being toddlers, 16 preschoolers, and 10 school-aged children. We have an open door policy that means that parents are welcome to volunteer, come have lunch with their children, lead a project if they would like to, those sorts of things. Our current location at 2810 Diane Lane in the former Jefferson School has served us well, but earlier this year we learned that we would be losing access to this place due to the pending sale. In response, a resource group formed to assess our options and identify a viable long-term solution for our program. This team includes our staff and board members, the City of Hibbing, along with key partners from the Northland Foundation, Northland SBDC, United Way of Northeast Minnesota, First Children's Finance, the Regional Child Care Startup, and Retention Navigator, and others involved in childcare sustainability and wayfinding. With support from this group, we conducted a financial analysis and an extensive search for a suitable new location. We are pleased to share that we have reached a tentative agreement with Abundant Life Church to lease a portion of their lower level. The proposed space can accommodate all of our current children and includes classroom areas, a kitchen/dining room, and ample outdoor green space. This location is not only well suited to our current needs, but also presents a promising long-term solution. We're currently working with our licensor, the state fire marshal, and building inspector to determine what renovations may be required to bring the new space into full compliance with licensing and safety standards. These may include updates to windows, doors, and other infrastructure. Those specifics cannot be confirmed until after the inspection. We are exploring grant funding opportunities through the Northland Foundation and the IRRR to help support necessary renovations. Additionally, we are assessing storage needs at the new site. While we are enthusiastic about this move, it comes with challenges. The city has informed us that we must vacate our current space by mid-July and that the current owner will be out as early as mid-May. At that time, we may become responsible for our utilities. The building's utilities have historically been included in our rent and were not in our name. We attempted to estimate costs based on historic data for this interim period. However, the data is only available on a building-wide basis. We expect the usage and costs to be significantly reduced once the commercial bakery vacates, but this uncertainty is still a concern. Our current rent, including utilities, is $3,000 per month. We hope this figure will be sufficient to cover the interim utility costs until the move is complete, as we cannot support an increase to our costs. We are also likely incurring additional expenses related to the relocation, and while we understand that the City of Hibbing chose to provide approximately up to $52,000 towards renovations for code and licensing compliance to create an environment on par with our current space, as well as moving expenses, we are concerned about incurring extra costs. We are in the process of finalizing lease negotiations with Abundant Church and reviewing potential changes to our insurance policies. We remain committed to ensuring a smooth, timely transition with minimal disruption to the families and children we serve. We're grateful for the continued support of our community partners and are reaching out to Heda with this update and a request for our support as we move through this critical transition. Ensuring the progression of quality childcare in Hibbing is a shared priority, and we are hopeful that this relocation will strengthen our foundation for many years to come. So our current next steps are working with a licensor to schedule a fire marshal, building inspector, and potentially the health department to visit and determine renovation requirements. Coordinate with Abundant Life Church to hire a licensed contractor to estimate costs and conduct required renovations if any are required. Work with insurance agent on interim and long-term insurance changes. Revise our cash flow projection based on new rent, insurance costs, summer enrollment, and a fall preschool enrollment. review and sign a lease, determine the moving date, schedule the team, and lastly, move in. Our roadblocks, however, is that we can't estimate or begin required renovations until a building inspector or fire marshal determines them at site visit. We can't estimate interim utility costs as historical information is only available building-wide. We have concerns that they will exceed the amount we are currently paying for rent, and that will not be feasible for us. We can't schedule moving date until the renovations are determined and the contractor is secured and provides us with a construction schedule. And lastly, the licensor needs to sign off and approve for the required moving. At this time, Hibbing Parents Nursery School requests that Heda to forego any rent payments at 2810 Diane Lane until we vacate the building at the end of the 90-day notice period, which should be July 15th, 2025. We thank you for your time and consideration.
Members, any questions for Pia and Sarah here?
I have a quick one. You have 31 current students, correct? Children.
Mm-hmm.
What is your capacity gonna be if all this goes through?
We will have probably about this.
We'll have probably about the same amount of children. We can go up to 49 children
Okay.
without sprinkling. Currently, the Abundant Life Church does not have sprinklers, and so we will have to hold at 49 until something happens or changes.
So if it was sprinkled, you could
We
possibly go to 60 or something?
Yep, we could increase, and we would need, more square footage
Sure,
for
okay.
all the children, but, sky's the limit. It's a beautiful facility over there. They have some room.
Mr. Vice President?
Yes.
So when you speak about the roadblocks, have you had any update as far as with the building inspector? Since this has been, typed up and everything, where are you in the process?
So I guess at the beginning of this, I was under the impression that the fire marshal would come through, tell us what needs to happen, so it's up to fire code. But now it's actually the building inspector has to come, and the state fire marshal will come once renovations are done. So I've tried to contact the Hibbing building inspector, Pat Green, today. We've started being in contact on Friday. Now we've missed each other's calls throughout the day, and I work full-time as a teacher at the daycare, so I'm hoping that tomorrow I have better luck. And he'll be able to come this
Okay.
week to
Thank you.
tell us what needs to happen.
Mr. Vice President, members of the board, I am doing what I can to help facilitate that as well, because it is extremely important that
Yes.
that new building get looked at. So as soon as Pia made me aware, we've been trying to coordinate that as well.
Abundant Life Church.
Oh, okay.
The problem is that you would think that somebody could come in and say, when I moved the preschool originally from downtown to the Jefferson School, Mr. Green came, a fire inspector came and said, okay, this and this and this and this. And I was working with Ginny Forty at the time. She was more than happy to help out and get people in there to work. And now it seems so backwards, because in order for our licensor through the state to be able to say, okay, fire marshal, go in and approve, okay, health inspector, go in and approve, all these things have to be done. Well, how do we know? You know, there's a doorway there that we don't feel is wide enough. I don't know, is it? It might be, I don't know. And so that's the hard part, is it's just, it's not going the same as it did way back when we moved. It's frustrating.
Mr. Green, from Building and Housing, should be able to give you some of those answers.
Yep.
He'll know what occupancy can be, he'll know what door widths have to be, so he should be able to give you some direction. So that's who I'd reach out to.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Betsy facilitated that last
Yep.
week, and so,
Yeah.
We
So
certainly
trying.
want this to be successful, and it sounds like you have a nice facility to move into. It's a great location, so, I mean, we want to make sure that this transition is as smooth as it can be. And I think Betsy certainly, because as we have taken over this building, wants that to happen.
Mr. Vice President, members of the board, also, they've had a really good working relationship with the Abundant Life Church. The facility director and the pastor, et cetera, have been extremely helpful as well. So
Yep.
I think that that's been a great
we
help.
think it will be a great fit.
It's
Yeah.
not a high demand situation. You know what I mean? We're just trying to keep it warm.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Just keep the communication open. There's nothing that we need to fight about or have issues with. We just,
Yeah.
you know, they wrote the lease basically asking us questions about things. It just seems nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you anticipate being able to move out by mid-July?
I wish I could answer that.
Yes, we certainly hope so.
Okay.
And we had someone from the North End Foundation do a walkthrough with us at the church, and she has some experience moving daycares, and now she isn't a licensor, she's a fire marshal or building inspector, but she doesn't think there's a lot that needs to be done. So we're hopeful that there's gonna be a lot of renovations. Like, the only thing that really stands out is that one doorway, which would be,
Not a big
But-
deal.
yeah.
And the church is like, whatever we need to
Yep.
do, we'll do it for you, you know? So, and all the other components of this move are coming together. I mean, as far as, you know, getting a moving estimate
Yep.
and just bringing in as many people as we can. And when I moved into the Jefferson School, Pat Green was the best.
Yeah.
I mean, he just guided like nobody else. So I'm hoping that once the ball rolls, it'll just really go.
Mr. Vice President, members of the commission, one other thing, that as they do this move and transition, we've talked a little bit about maybe the need to store some stuff temporarily at the current site as they're moving, just from the aspect that there might not be enough storage at the church site initially to start, unless those renovations can all be made prior. And it might make more sense to move people out of the school site and transition them to the church with the things that they need, and maybe leave a few items of storage behind, you know, while they make the rest of the renovations. It might make more sense to do that in the interim, but they will keep coming back to give us additional updates as we go along. So we'll, I'll probably get an emailed update from them in June, unless there needs to be another conversation face to face.
Good, thank you.
Good.
Excellent. Any other questions for these ladies? All right, thank you so much, ladies. The decision item for the rent payment is a little bit later in the agenda.
Yep.
And we'll keep you posted. If you want to stick around until that item is addressed, you may, or I can just text you after too, so.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your
Sounds
time.
good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Presentation number 2 is the AMGS expansion update presentation by Kraus Anderson, Todd Erickson, and our owner's rep, John Maxwell, are here. And also Jason Wabama from the company is here, because there's some scheduling things that we're going to talk about tonight as we move forward.
Thanks,
Take it
Betsy.
away, Todd.
Yeah, good evening. Update for tonight, let's see. There it is. We will go through safety, schedule, progress, budget, and project contingency. With, let's see, we'll go into safety. We are It's 8 months into the project, haven't had a lost time incident yet. It's pretty awesome. Schedule status, as noted, we're 8 months in what was originally projected to be a 10-month project. So as it currently stands, we're 80% complete. Current schedule. Jason's team from AMGS started moving in some of their materials that they'll use for their production. They started that last Thursday. Jason and I worked through a occupancy schedule for where they need to be in the building, when they need to be there. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. With our updated schedule, we're anticipating I'm going to do the punch list in 3 different phases. It helps out the engineers and it helps out different teams. So the site work and the civil work, we think we'll be doing our punch list on June 9th. Site civil and landscaping, everything outside. Inside the building with the office, we'll be at punch list by June 16th. And for the fabrication, production, warehouse, everything, we think we'll be there on June 23rd. All of this rolls up into a substantial completion of June 24th. And through final inspections and everything, an anticipated move-in, complete turnover of the keys on July 7th. This slide on weather delays I've had in my last 3 presentations. I haven't changed it till we got to tonight when we could talk about the change in the schedule and the costs that are impacted. So the reason that this has come forward is in our original presentations, in our original everything up front, we said that turnover of the keys date was going to be June 2nd. And as I just showed you on a different slide, we're now saying July 7th. So the weather delays is what impacted us throughout the winter. I've listed here 32 days that we were unable to work. Those items were identified contractually when we started. We identified wind speeds when we couldn't work, temperatures, contractually we said if it's 5 degrees or less, we can't work. And there was rain that impacts us as well. We anticipate rain, but not when it takes us out of business for a week. So that's why this has always been here. I've been bringing this forward till we could get to tonight for discussion. The other thing, as I noted, contractually it says if we lose days, we get days in the schedule to make up. We also started out and identified up front that we planned for 10 weather days, 10 lost days, throughout the 10-month period. So the 32 days of lost due to weather has not taken that into account yet. So the change order for the request for extension in time was 29 work days. Then we also had the owner's rep come out, their testing agent come out and tell us that we were completely thawed and ready to start interior work. We went in and first we had to remove all of the ground thaw machines. We had 6 of them running. We removed them, removed the insulation, got ready for prep work, dug down 5 feet and hit frost. So we then had to get all the ground thaws back, which in the springtime is difficult. They're very high demand. They're only used for probably 3 months of winter and then nobody needs them. So we had to get those back. So that cost us 9 working days. The net result of between weather and the ground thaw moves our move-in date or turn the keys over from June 2nd to July 24th. And then there's costs associated with us to be there. Those were also in the contract of, how much is it per hour for myself, for our superintendent? How much is it for the office trailer? All that was pre-negotiated. So I went through those and I came up with a number. I want you to keep in mind that we're requesting that we change the official contractual turn over the keys to July 24th. and we're asking for money associated. As far as the schedule goes, we're doing everything we can, and I'll show you that in a minute. Well, I guess I did show you on a previous slide. While we're saying contractually it's kind of a July 24th turnover date, I'm pushing for July 7th as I displayed through my different phases in there. So yeah, the contractual date will be July 24th for turnover the keys. We're pushing for July 7th. Then there's also cost associated. The other great thing about your contract is upfront you negotiated for 100% give back for general conditions. So anything that this money would come from the owner's contingency for the project, and it would go into Kraus Anderson's general conditions. But the way your contract is written, dollar for dollar, anything we don't spend, we give back. So there is cost associated for us for the delay. We ask for the money per the contract, we give back whatever we don't spend. It's a very fair way to do that.
Todd, question for you. Who made the decision, and I remember this happened because you told me to pull the thaw machines out, the ground thawing machines out, because that delayed you about 9 days.
Yes.
And that decision was made by who?
We had a representative that, from Braun Engineering come out, and he had a method for testing. His method is he would dig down 3 feet and test the temperature of the soil from the top, and he would test down at 36 inches. Their theory is that when frost goes out, frost goes up. So your temperature from surface to 3 feet down, if it's colder down there, that means the frost is still coming up. Yep. But if it's warmer 3 feet down than it was at the surface, their assumption was that the frost is out. And so Braun told us that the frost was out, go ahead. So that's when we removed everything.
And I guess where does their liability fall on that decision-making on their expertise? And I would assume the subsoil, any type of subsoil, how frost moves through subsoil can be based on what type of subsoil it is. We went, how deep? That was in a clay base? Was that a clay base, I would assume?
It's all clay.
It's
And
all
we
clay?
got hit with rain just before it froze out.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's no liability to Braun for that miscalculation?
There is no liability that I'm aware of. I don't have a copy of an agreement
Okay.
for them, but I don't believe that there is from my prior experience. So to go forward, I asked them, I said, okay, we're gonna come in here, we're gonna reinstall the ground thaws. What are we gonna do different to
Yeah.
not make this mistake again? And I asked them to come out with a hand auger that would go down 60 inches or 5 feet. They didn't have one. So then I instructed our crew to always have a backhoe available. So we would have Bugalis, the dirt contractor. We would pull back blankets and he would dig down and we would test it. So that's how we
Okay.
tested it, to be sure. So
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, to your question, I did have our owner's rep go and talk to Braun. John, did you have a response on the liability question?
We did not. Yes, we discussed it with Braun. We talked with, we talked about the people on site, making sure that they understood the impact it was to our project and potentially other projects, within the city. But we were not able to find anything in regard to their contract that really did anything. I mean, they came out and did the test. They provided the advice based off of their recommendation.
Okay.
We followed their advice. There's no contractual liability in that scenario that we were able to just uncover.
All right. Lesson learned.
definitely. So progress overall in the project, all the flat work is complete for the concrete, the office, all the walls are framed up. They actually got all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing roughed in and inspected. Sheetrocking should begin today. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the dust collection systems, all of those are ongoing. I'll show you that in some pictures. Site grading, Landscaping, all of that starts today. And as noted previously, Jason's team started delivering some of their materials last week. I told you that I'd worked with Jason on the floor plan of the building. The picture that's up there, down in the lower left, that yellow area, it's phase one. That's where they needed to start storing some materials. Actually last Thursday, Jason's team brought in materials. Directly adjacent to it, the L-shaped in orange is phase two. That's scheduled for, I can't read it, about a week from now, but they're actually occupying some of that space. The green space up at the top of the page, that's in their heavy production area. He wants to occupy that by June 1st. Over on the right, phase 4, that's where his powder coat booth and everything will go. He wants to be occupying that by June 15th, and then the rest of the production area, the phase 5. So that's July 1st. So we have no problem with that. The reason we established this as a communications tool, number one, we worked with Jason to see what he needs so we can accommodate that. Number two, we publish this in our office trailer, we publish it on the job site, and we send it to all of our subs. So they're all working with us towards these common goals. So. Inside the facility, the picture that's up there is a large panel of what's going on in there. Lots of crews, lots of scissor hoists in the air. Right up front, you can see duct work. You can also see copper lines. That's air piping. Oh, on the left here, where the headlights are in that pickup, that's where AMGS's team was bringing in some of their materials. That was that phase 1 spot. In this picture is wall framing. This was taken on Thursday. This is the office, it was ready to be insulated, and I'll start with sheetrock and the steel liner panel. These two pictures, the one on the upper left, it's showing some of the ductwork mechanical systems. Again, on the right, it's more of the same, different areas. There's a lot of that gone in already. This picture is standing back in the production area, looking to the south. People are working on this guy in the upper left, he's working on the fire sprinkler lines. There's other people working on air lines. There's other people working on ductwork. The electrical transformers in place inside, or the switchgear, I mean, outside the transformers in place. The large blue box that says ACT, that's the dust collection system that'll work in there. So, all three major, very expensive components that were reflective in your latest invoice, I'm sure. And then this is the east side of the building where grading started today to bring that up to grade. So, the budget status. As I showed you, we're 80% complete with our time frame. We're 70% complete with the budget. These last couple months a lot of money comes in with all the finishes coming in. So that, to me, seems like it's right on track. In the contingency, again, with us being 80% complete, we've spent 40% of the owner's contingency and 45% of Kraus Anderson's contingency. These are all good numbers. It's a great spot to be. So, any questions? As noted, we're doing everything we can. The date we ask for contractually versus the date that we push for to get you in there. Two different things. So,
Tom, when you say June 24th or July 7th, is that bituminous? When you say landscaping, everything's being finished, graded, does that include bituminous, everything complete?
It does.
So that'll be all bituminous, parking lot, everything will be done?
Yes, I started pushing them. My first research was to MnDOT to see when they would lift road restrictions in northeastern Minnesota,
Yep.
and that was today. But I knew that 2.5 weeks ago. So I was on the phone 2.5 weeks ago asking Bugalis to get us on their schedule with their asphalt paving company so that we were one of the first ones to get this done. So I predict that we'll be in there June 2nd. I looked it up today. It's June 2nd that we're pushing for, and it might be sooner. So
Is it Vasab Bituminous, or who is it?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's subbed through Bugales.
All right,
So,
just curious.
yeah.
Mr. Vice President, members of the commission, if I may, just a heads up that the master project budget is also in your packet. And behind that is the AMGS expansion project change order detail, showing all of where the change orders are at. The one that Todd is referring to tonight would be change order number 15, which would allow for the schedule shift and the additional funding. The funding is already within the purview of the budget that has been approved. So tonight, all we'll need to do is to amend the scheduled completion date to July 24th at the second part of the agenda.
All right.
All right. Any other questions for?
Oh, I lost that. Contingency, Betsy, I should have verified with you before I published this, but does my contingency and yours line up for the owner contingency?
For the owner.
I show that you have $333,000 remaining.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the 215,926 is the expenditures, yes.
Perfect.
So we're tracking, exactly. And I do that every time a correction or a change order comes through to make sure that Todd and I line up perfectly, and so far we're tying out. So that's been a very good thing as well.
Good.
And pay app number 8 just went through, I believe, or is it 9? I just sent it down to Sheena this week.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions for Mr. Erickson, Jason, or Mr. Maxwell?
That's great.
today?
Thank you.
Excellent. Fabulous. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you.
And Todd, if you're going to wait around, I won't text you, but if you're not going to wait around, then I'll just text you
Okay.
at that juncture.
That sounds great. Thank you.
He's in Orlando.
Okay.
Can he go
All right.
remote?
So
Can he go remote?
I do not think so, because we would have to publish that.
All right.
So, point of order, Mr. Vice President. We have another presentation, so while the Kilburn group maybe gets set up, let's just talk this through. So our bylaws say that resolutions, let's see, all resolutions with financial implications for the city of Hibbing or Heda will be enacted by a 2/3 majority of the authority. So, we do have the interfund loan and the land acquisition fund and the purchase agreement are all 3 that would require financial implications and our financial motions. Attorney Boylan, what do you think about how we should address those at this time?
So, if you don't have the majority here to vote on it, then you're just in a box to address any of them tonight. You might have to, based on your timing, have a special meeting called to address them when you can get one more person here to take them on. That would be my advice tonight, because otherwise you're just short based on your own bylaws, so.
Can we just go like an early morning, like an 8 o'clock or whatever, just something, whatever works for everybody's work schedule? What time? Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah,
At the
well,
end, towards the end of the week. I don't know what else we can do. That's,
Well,
So-
we might be in the same situation at the end of the week because Member Schreiberger will not be here.
I think President Brockich, Mikey
I'll find out who's gonna be here at the end of
Yeah.
this week.
You'll have to find out.
We need one more, that's all. One of the 2, or
Mhm.
one of the 3.
But that's I would probably poll the group as best you can when you think you can get 5, and then set a special meeting for that day. You just need 3 days' notice to do it, and take up those items. That's what you'd be limited to under the special meeting is whatever you present on your agenda. You can't
Right.
add to it later.
Usually have.
Right, okay. So if you ever wondered if your attendance is critically important to the EDA agenda, it absolutely is, and I really appreciate, I appreciate the, giving me those heads up and that attendance, if you can or cannot make it, because it would, adjust our agenda for sure, so I really appreciate it all. Thank you. All right, so at this time, Mayor Hyduk has stepped out, but he will be back shortly, so I'll just give a quick little introduction. Tonight, we have with us the Kilbourne Group, Bill Rosman from the Kilbourne Group, and Jim Bagalas, John, and Anthony from City Hall Commons here tonight, talking about a 400-block redevelopment proposal that they're going to make to the EDA board. We will not take any official action tonight, but it will be in front of you for consideration and questions. And then when we do have the ability to have discussion and you've had time to consider it, we will bring it back for a vote on a pre-development agreement. So I'll invite the gentlemen to give their presentation and allow you, and there will be time for questions afterwards.
Thank you, Betsy, and thank you for letting us speak to you this evening. I'm Bill Rothman. As Betsy mentioned, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Kilbourne Group in Fargo, North Dakota. And we're excited to talk to you about the Horizon Cooperative Program, our project. And what we're going to do today is explain what the project is, why we're doing it, why we think it's really good for Hibbing, the whole sales process, the timing, because this is going to be financed by HUD, and how that works and why this is going to take the length of time, and we'll walk you through the steps. Talk a little bit about who Kilbourne is and what we've done, and Jim is going to talk about City Commons and his background and why we think that this will be a good marriage, and then take questions and discussion about this whole process, because I want to make sure everybody is well aware of the risks in doing this, but the benefits and why we think this really makes a lot of sense for your community. So thank you again for letting us do this. And this project really is a combination of two projects. One is the cooperative, and the other is a retail project that Jim is going to build separately, but it will be attached to the Horizon Cooperative project. So it will really be, if you think about it, and it'll be separated by kind of a condominium. And there'll be two units, one being the cooperative and the other being the retail. But this presentation is really centered around mostly the cooperative. And right now we're looking at about 80 units. It's with 102 units, or 102 underground parking. It will have about 12,000 feet of prime retail right next to it. And then amenities like a fully equipped workshop, state-of-the-art fitness room, community room, and patio area with barbecues and things like that we normally do in all of our projects. And this is reading your market study and spending a lot of time with Jim and really understanding what the needs here in this community is. Housing for empty nesters and really geared more towards senior housing. This won't be age restricted, but it certainly will attract folks that want to move out of their house, still want to own property, but don't want to shovel snow, don't want to mow their lawn, don't want to have an all-in solution where they can go, stay here in the summer maybe, and go somewhere like Florida or Arizona in the winter, or stay here long-term. But it's a solution to keep people, as the mayor had mentioned to us when we met, to keep people in Hibbing, permanently instead of moving out of the area. The way the co-op works, and for those of you who aren't aware, I know there's a couple co-ops in town, but there hasn't been something built here in probably 15 years that is a co-op, if that's correct. The way we're doing is with something called the HUD 213 financing. And so what that is they provide an underlying mortgage for 40 years. A buyer comes in and they put a down payment, typically 35% down, and the remainder ends up being they buy a unit and their monthly payments for maintenance, the balance of the mortgage, property taxes to the extent there is, and utilities, all in one payment. We're assuming that, you know, and really the way this is done is you hire, the contractor builds it, and for whatever it's worth, including a development fee, it's divided up amongst the buyers or the owners of the apartment units. So it's, you know, if you have a 1-bedroom, it's worth one price. If you have a 2-bedroom, it's worth another price, and and depending on locations, and if you have a deck or if you're higher or lower, there might be some moderations in the price. But it isn't like typical market rate housing where, you know, build a few and then, you know, you can keep marking up the price if there's a lot of supply and demand. This is really, you know, kind of uniform pricing. There are a lot of critical things that we need to do kind of in the first step is really get, you have a market study and it's really good and it helped us inform us on this presentation and it provides us a lot of thoughts of what direction to go, but we need to get a HUD conforming market study to really tell us about pricing and see what the market price is. And then we've talked to Betsy about how we might have to bridge the gap if the pricing, for instance, comes in at $275 and our costs come in at $350. How do we handle that? What is the way to make this successful so that we can sell out the project? The site is right here, I believe, right there, across the street. The fourth.
Yeah.
Sorry, that
Close
way.
enough.
I'm directionally challenged, so sorry.
Me too.
But it's across here the street, and it would take, you know, taking down the buildings and doing a full demo and development. You know, we'll have to excavate underground for the underground parking, and depending on what the soils conditions will dictate whether we have to do what's called helix piers, or if we can just dig and do and not, being a finance guy instead of a contractor, you know what the technical terms are, but you know, changing the, you know, the construction type. This is a rendering that our architect Koss has put together. Koss has done a number of these co-ops in Minnesota. One of the things HUD requires is that you have a contractor and an architect that have HUD experience. And, you know, so we went to somebody that was recommended to us, I think somebody that Jim knows well, that has done other projects and has done a couple of real life projects outside of Hibbing. This walks you through kind of the pre-construction schedule. I have a more detailed, all of the different steps that we have. This summarizes it, and then I break it down into some more steps. But here, the first part of this is really working with the city on the pre-development agreement and the PDA and the development agreement, and some of the requirements that we'll need there. And then it's start to get the HUD materials and marketing materials that will be needed in order to pre-sell. Because one of the things that we need to do before we ever start is get 90% pre-sales. And you would do those by a reservation. And then people wouldn't typically buy these until you get much closer to construction. But we have to show HUD that there's a demand for this product, that we've hit the right price. And if we build it for what we say we're going to build it, which we need a GMP to do that, then we can get going. HUD takes, and I went right down the middle, they take about 8 to 10 months once we start the process. There's a couple of stages that we have to go through. One is a concept memo with them. Then one's a, you know, kind of the, I think I'll get through the next part of this. You know, there's the HUD approval process, which is, like I said, 3 steps. There's the concept memo, then there's the approval memo, and then there's the final approval from them. Anywhere along the line, they could say no, but we're hiring a gentleman from JLL who's done a number of these projects around here and in North Dakota and in South Dakota. They've had a lot of success. So you need somebody to kind of help you shepherd that through. It's effectively a mortgage broker that has specific experience around the 213C. And, you know, they really gear you in the right direction. There's all the documents that you need in the concept memo, and normally when you get through the concept memo, if everything stays the same, HUD typically approves these. And once you get your final approval, then you document the process, and it's about 45 days to close from there. That whole process will take 8 to 10 months, but the first key steps here is the pre-sale and getting the marketing materials, and that's going to take a couple, 3 months to get together. And that's why we gave you kind of what we think is the outside date around September of 26 before we could start construction. HUD also won't let us start, I don't think we can even level the buildings until we get their approval, because they don't want anything disturbed. I mean, they've got very specific requirements around that. And so we can't even get a jump start on the project before we get their final approval. And that means closing with them, so.
You made one comment about demolition of our existing buildings.
Yeah.
Because we kind of have that on a schedule right now. We're working with.
Well, so if you're demoing them, then I think we'll be in good shape. If we've got if you're gonna demo the buildings now, then.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Betsy. Yes, that
Okay.
is something we are doing.
So that'd be great, because then
Okay.
that's not gonna hold it, then we can just start the minute we get our final approval and signed documents
Okay.
to go. And I envision that this is really gonna be cooperative. We're gonna have to do a lot of reporting to Heda and whoever else you need us to report, but really on the progress that we're making throughout, because we're at the whim of the government, which can be frustrating sometimes. And they have certain timelines that they have to get things approved, but they might not get it approved, or they may come back with more comments, and we have to make adjustments in our construction documents. And we would just give you regular updates, however often, if you want monthly updates, or what milestones we've hit and what we're waiting on, and if there's other information needed. I think that's kind of going to be more the cadence here, so that we can get to a successful conclusion. I mentioned the pre-sale. I mean, the pre-sale is a requirement. We're not going to be able to close without actual contracts on 90%, but we're going to be looking for reservations to make sure that this idea actually is really supported by Hibbing, because there's a lot of money that we have to put out, Jim and I, in order to do this project with all the pre-development, because we can't get reimbursed until the HUD loan closes. And so we want to make sure that this is going to work, and I think you want to make sure that this is going to work, and that people are, it's a great idea. It's a great location here, and we'll tell you a little bit about what Kilburn's done and who we are, but we really believe in a vibrant downtown, and that's in really creating the vibrancy and bringing people back to the core of the city is, I think, really critical for communities.
Mr. Vice President, members of the commission, if I may, Bill, at what point in your process that you laid out do you need that gap funding commitment? When would we have some idea of that?
I would hope before we go out for the pre-sales that we will, because once we go out and sell this, and you're a buyer, and I tell you it's going to be $350 or whatever that price is, or $275 or whatever, you don't want me to come back in 10 months and tell you it's going to be $400. Because then you'll lose the sale. We gotta get this thing really nailed down with not only the market study, but and the pre-sale process. So they'll go hand in hand.
Okay, so it'll be somewhere in that May-June timeframe. We'll start to understand what that capital stack looks like.
Well, right now it's May, and we're almost done with May.
That's what I'm looking at your timeline. So
yeah. So really, it's going to be more around, I'm guessing, around September, October, when we see how the pre-sales and how they really work with the market study. In Kilburn, if you don't know who we are, We've been in business since 2007. The company was started by Doug Burgum, who until last year was the governor of the state. He's now the Secretary of the Interior. It's his DNA over this company, but he is not involved at all, he can't even be involved on, commenting on what we're doing with his company, because of the regulations that the cabinet members have. Mike Almendinger is the president. He's been with Doug since 2001 when he was at Great Plains Software. I've been with the company since 2017. My background is as a CFO for 3 companies over the past 15 years, and then 20 years of banking experience with major institutions out of California. Our company has been very involved in the redevelopment of downtown Fargo. If you've been to Fargo, have you seen what's gone on? A lot of the work that we have done started with Doug before he became governor, and has been carried on by the rest of us. We have a team of 37 people that includes construction, property management, sales and leasing, fund management, accounting, and third-party consulting for projects that are in trouble and helping developers, get through really kind of troubled times. What else is in here? And there's just a little bit about Mike and myself, and I'll let Jim, talk about his background,
all right,
and what he's going to be doing.
Great, thanks, Bill. So, Jim Bogalis, I'm here on behalf of City Hall Commons. I'm a longtime resident of Hibbing, Minnesota. 20 years as owner and president of Bogalis Companies, civil construction company here in town, among other things in the area. Just to reiterate what Bill said, we're here, we seeked out Bill and Kilbourne Group for this project, really off the demographic study that was done for the city. We've seen an opportunity here where, the cost of housing is really high, new housing especially, and we've got a shortage of housing in this area. So what we thought, like Bill said, was, you're gonna provide great housing for the seniors in this community, keep the seniors here. But in addition to that, these seniors, we're really targeting the seniors in this area, especially in Hibbing, where these seniors can move out of their homes and provide these homes to new residents coming in or people that need the housing, so they can move into the full-size home in Hibbing, where the seniors can move into this facility. And another thing that really helps us out is City Hall Commons. To make this a combination where it's a co-op and a retail center, really helps the overall cost of each unit for these residents to be able to afford the unit and to be able to have all the amenities along with it right here in downtown. So that's how this thing was kind of born, and City Hall Commons is a local group, as you've seen from the presentation. Myself, John Bogalis is the president, and Anthony Larson, longtime residents of Hibbing, longtime business men in Hibbing, and we've got quite a portfolio of real estate here in Hibbing and statewide, really collectively, not only in residential but commercial, retail, and industrial. So we really are a group that is really passionate about Hibbing real estate, really passionate about the Hibbing community and the Iron Range overall. So City Hall Commons is here not only as a commercial retail firm, but really a part of the community and doing this for the community at the end of the day. And again, bringing a powerhouse like Kilbourne Group in on this to really develop this building, a building that they've done over and over and over again, and to bring companies like Koss Wilson in to design the building, who've done a number of co-ops in the past. That was really essential to this project, to make this project a viable one for the city. So that's City Hall Commons' role. In addition to that, we're here to help Kilbourne Group in any way, especially on the local level. to help bring this thing to fruition at the end of the day. To not only have co-op 70 to 80 units for our seniors here in our community, but also to provide brand new commercial retail right on Howard Street, and really to beautify this 400 block. City Hall right now is being beautified, right? It really would go along with what's been going on in this area, and we really think it'd be a great addition to the city. And that's all I have.
Jim, question for you. I noticed about 12,000 square feet of retail. The parking was mentioned about 105, was it 102 or 105 spots, something like that. Is that going to be a lower, meaning basement level, or just ground level? And I would assume your retail is going to be, 12,000 square feet is going to be probably Howard Street side. And the back would be probably underground parking. That 12,000 square feet is pretty much the whole front of the building, so deep. So
Right.
I'm trying to get a feel for, regardless of what the design is, what your thought process is on where the retail space would be.
So currently the design is the center of Howard Street will be the lobby area, will be the commons area, and so on for the
Okay.
co-op. The corners, at both ends, 6,000 square feet roughly on each side, will be the retail centers.
Okay.
Right? And then the parking for the building, underground and floor level, will be for the residents, for the
Right.
tenants only, right?
Right,
So
no, I
parking-
understand that. Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking about 12,000 square feet, that's, a block is fairly long
Yeah, yeah.
in the width of this block. So I knew you had to have some thought process there, and that's why I asked the question. So you're putting your commons area in the middle, which is multi-use, and then your retail on the two ends.
And the retail on two ends, and then the back side of the building, the alley side of the building will be underground, will be flat, on-ground parking.
Right,
At level parking,
Okay, very good.
indoor. So each resident will have at least one parking spot indoors.
Okay.
And under garage. The property is really designed for year-round use for senior living, right?
Right.
For all the amenities and all the comforts, if you will. So underground parking or indoor parking is really an essential part of this program.
That's the only question I had.
Any other questions for our presenters?
I guess I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
78 units is what you talked about here. I think
Yeah.
last time, I think it was up to 90, but 78, what does that put us on an elevation as far as, is that 4 floors, 3 floors? How many levels of residential?
Yeah, so right now we're at 5 levels of residential.
Okay.
But again, that may change if, as we go through the process, right? So
Okay.
it may be 4 levels, it may be, maybe 5.
Okay,
So that should be under, so it's 1 level of commercial and then 4 to 5 levels of residential, which should currently be accommodated by our zoning.
Right.
Because we're at 6 floors possible, I believe.
I thought,
There is a potential that may go above the height, potential, but I think we're gonna have that option as we move forward.
Okay, so then that would require the zoning amendments and things and have to walk through that process, yeah.
It may.
A lot of this will be dictated what the cost end up.
Yeah, yeah.
what about our ladder truck?
For
Our
public
new-
safety
yeah, for-
reasons, you
yeah,
mean?
Yeah, how
Um,
high does that go?
I don't know.
the new one is bigger. I would
don't-
assume, that's a good question, but I assume it's spaced to go to our highest building, which would either be the high school or the Android at this point. So I would say it would reach this height, but that's a question for Eric,
Yeah.
Fire Chief. And I'm sure he'd have that answer right away.
I do think the Android is
It's
less
ordered.
than 6, it's only 5
Yeah,
floors.
the Android's not that high.
Well, you used to have, you had the penthouse on the top, it used to be on top of the Android also. That might be removed.
Was
But-
there also, once upon a time about, what it should look like, a
Oh,
building?
historic,
Yeah,
yeah.
historical and all of that in that area?
Yes, we have made Mr. Kilborn, or Mr. Rothman and Mr. Bogales both aware that it needs to be in conformance with our historic district, so they're aware of that,
Yes.
and we'll work through that process.
Okay, thank you.
We're very aware of that, and it's gonna be a balance between that and, to make this affordable for the residents, right? The real key here, you gotta think of, we're not building a building here that someone else is gonna own. This is gonna be the residents that are gonna own this building. That's how this co-op works. They'll be the owners of the building as a whole.
Right, so any deviation from that would require planning and zoning approval to be outside of that. So again, that, something we have to work through as we decide, to enter into development agreements and purchase agreements. Those things would all be part of that process.
Right. Okay, thank you.
It's also our goal to keep the price as low as possible too.
Yeah.
So that it is affordable. So, we gotta work with city staff on how do we do that? What do we need? How's this gonna work? So.
Mr. Rothman, does the HUD require that zoning is all approved and amended as needed prior to the application? Does that have to be prior to the concept memo, or just?
They gotta know it's in process, and by the time we have the final application, they'll need to see evidence that it's been approved.
Okay.
And I noticed one other thing that you had on your bill is what your monthly expenses, like any co-op, will entail or support, and that's management fee, operating maintenance, insurance, operating reserve, and replacement reserve, which I think is important.
Yep.
That's built in the beginning, so that as your building deteriorates or starts getting old, you've got funding in place. Does that get capped, or is that just continual? I mean, it's like a reserve up to X, or does it just keep building?
It keeps going, but then the board, once, we're not involved anymore,
Yeah.
any longer, makes a decision on how much they need in there.
Okay.
But there are some requirements that HUD will have too.
Yes.
I was gonna
that
say,
has
I
to
would
be
think
in there.
financial
That's gonna
requirements,
be a
yeah.
minimum, so.
I just think that's a really important component that you never thought about years ago. We're just counting everybody just to do their own thing, and to have it built in, it's like a safety net.
Yes.
For buildings moving forward.
Yeah, and one of the other things we'll talk about is tax abatement. And when you're thinking about tax abatement, it's not tax abatement for us, again, it's for the residents, and it's keeping that monthly payment down. A natural question is, well, why is this guy standing up here and doing this? Are they getting paid to do it? Yes, we are getting paid. It's built into the cost. We get a development fee. And we should, Jim and I get a development fee, but that's it. We're not making any. If we sell the units for $500 because they cost $500, we're not making any more than our development fee. Then, there's no big profit margin in this. This is really, we get a fixed fee, and it's really to get the seniors in this kind of project. This isn't what we normally do. This isn't the type of project, but this is the nature of co-ops, which we think we can do because we've built so many of these multifamily units, these are effectively multifamily, but with more geared towards seniors.
Okay. Jim, a question for you regarding the retail part. What exactly are you targeting? Or do you have a vision of where you want to go with your retail space, not the location, but what you want to bring in?
Yeah, we do have an idea. We'd like to cater to the residents above, and fulfill the needs of Main Street, right? So
Okay.
a little combination thereof, and that's our intent.
All right.
I want to add too with this co-op, the nice thing about a co-op, the bad thing and the nice thing is that a lot of this work ends up ahead of time. Everyone's transparent on what's going on. Once it's done though, then the project goes, right? So it's a lot more work ahead of time, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Bill, but once that work is done, we're locked. We're locked, and HUD financing goes through the project, moves forward, right? Everything's paid for ahead of time, and away it goes. Unlike a project where, things could happen along the way, and investments already made, city investments already made, and it may go awry, right? So that's where I think this this portion is a little bit better. There is an investment on our end. It's a rather large one, but it is transparent up to that point. But once that trigger hits, then the project moves forward. Right? It's HUD funded, and all the prices are set. All the zoning, planning, everything's in place before prior to HUD doing any approval on something like this. And that's how these work.
There is, I mean, just like any other project, there's, construction risk with the contractor. I mean, they have to have the GMP. HUD requires it, we'll require it. They've got to, every contractor I've ever worked with, you're always fighting on change orders and, timing and all those kinds of things. We're gonna have to do that as part of our responsibilities and Jim's responsibility in this project. So there's always risks there, but a lot of them have been squeezed out once we close because people's money is in and they are closing on their units as it's been under construction. And, the premise is you just have 10% left to close through the balance of the project. And your risk is you're working with reputable contractors, so that's why they want somebody with HUD experience that knows what they're doing.
So 35% is what I've seen is what they're looking for down payments as you move forward with, and that'll be determined on what you set your actual units. You have an example here, but once you do all your paperwork, all your financial work, that'll set your unit prices, whether it's 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, is it 3 bedroom too, or just 1 and 2 bedroom?
A lot will dictate on what the market study tells us.
Okay.
Because we don't want to be at risk of holding, several 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Very good. But that price of those units still needs to be set, because hypothetically, you've got to see all your finance components put in place before you can determine that.
That's right.
And then that will determine the 35%
That's right.
investment to lock in.
Yeah, and then HUD would be providing the financing for the balance. It'll be a fixed rate. The reason you have a fixed rate mortgage for 40 years is because it's a fixed rate mortgage.
Right.
And theirs are typically about 100 basis points under what you would get as a conventional mortgage. And right now, they're in the low 6s, high 5s, low 6s.
Okay.
And I want to add, so the number we're talking about, the 275, that range comes from co-op contractors that have done numerous co-ops, right? So that's where when we did our study, that's where the prices came from. So this is a high level pricing at this point, right? If that makes sense.
All right.
Mr. Vice President, members of the commission, one final note to Finance Director Mullner and myself and internal team have worked on an application for assistance that would include the tax abatement or TIF financing, et cetera, that this project might need. So at some point then we'll have to go through that process. That application is actually made to City Council and then referred to the EDA for facilitation and administration. So once we get a little bit more into a financial stack, we would be able to walk through that process as well. So I'm tracking a couple of different, 2 planning and zoning items and 1 city council item thus far. So as we work this through, those will be other additional items once the EDA says, yes, let's go forward with this particular development. So any other questions for our presenters on this tonight?
That's good.
That's good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you so much for coming. And Mr. Rothman, I'll communicate with you after this meeting. And Mr. Bagalis as well. Excellent, thanks. Okay, so our final presentation then tonight is just an update. The Historic Android Project. Trellis, as you'll notice, if you're in the downtown at all, you'll see that they've started work on that building. Pat Green has reported that they'll probably have scaffolding all the way around the building. We're thinking it's gonna be the walk under scaffolding where they'll have, protection for folks to traverse the sidewalk as well. You'll see that in lots of downtowns when renovation projects are going on in this building. But one additional thing that Trellis, when they were here and presented, indicated that they were interested in partnering with the city and with Boomtown on the potential, on looking at the lower level ballroom or event center portion. So right now that is a small space and it's chunked up into a couple of different rooms. The Boomtown says, you know, the flow just doesn't go really well for larger events, but then also trying to hold 2 events at once isn't as feasible because you'd have to walk through the one event where the kitchen is into the other one. So it's, you know, kind of clunky that way as well. So they had asked Widseth to put together a proposal to look at potential of renovating that space to accommodate larger events and potentially 2 events at once. When we had initially gone after the deed funding for the downtown revitalization grant, we had written that particular building in with Trellis's blessing to see if we could secure some funds from deed to renovate that downstairs space while they were doing, you know, making the other investments in the building, because we could have used that private funding that came in as match, and we were unsuccessful with that application. So I'd like to pursue working with Boomtown Trellis and the IRRR potentially to see if we couldn't renovate that space to make it more usable for larger events. We know, you know, that our downtown is the central core of civic life here. The 2018 comprehensive plan includes a community vision that emphasizes our downtown revitalization. We also really emphasize the mixed use nature of, say, the Android building. The 2023 strategic plan by the City Council also identified a high priority goal of downtown revitalization, which is why Heda has put together the deferred loan programs, and you know, we have our revolving loan program, and we partner with businesses in the downtown focus district to secure IRRR funds and AEOA funds and those sorts of things. So we've put a lot of time and energy into looking at our downtown and how we might revitalize it. This Android building could be a step in the right direction as well, especially if you're looking at revitalization of the 400 block right next to it. Having additional space like that would be a great asset to be in that same area. I did ask Eric and Jessica Leeds to share their proposal from Widseth with me. They did, and then I've talked to the IRRR about the potential for funding community development partnership grant with EDA to Widseth to do this work, and that's later on the agenda. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that this is one of the things that I'm looking at, is the potential for enlarging that space and making it a little bit more user-friendly for today's events and the renters and the folks that are, you know, going to use that space here in our community. I hear it constantly that we don't have a large enough space to hold, you know, even the chamber event, let's say, their annual gala. You know, and we've made do around town, and so those event spaces work, but for some of those, you know, wedding events and things, it would be nice to have that ballroom available for a little bit larger event. Any questions about what the thoughts are on that, and as we move forward?
So what I heard you say, Betsy, is they're looking at creating an open floor plan to incorporate the whole, almost the whole level. I mean, that's a column design, post, and so you're never gonna remove those posts, but
No.
I was just, I've been at many, matter of fact, I was in a Kilbourne building in downtown North Dakota where they remodeled for a wedding, and it was one of your projects. It was beautiful, but I would assume they'll still have some pillar issues, but if you can open up the sightlines, and I'm not sure how they do that, what the, you know, the design, weight-bearing components are of that building, but I'll be curious to see what they can do. If you could open that whole area up, that would be a massive, that'd be a 500-seat area. If you could take it all the way to the front.
Is the Android on the historic
Yes.
register?
Yep. So hence working with a local company who understands, you know, what we need to look for in that particular renovation. I think, and they have a historic consultant that Trellis brought on, you know, to have that conversation as they've been doing all of their renovation plans. So some of the fit and finishes and things don't necessarily require approval if it's inside, but any of the external components and things really do matter. So yeah, we'd have to work within that as well.
Good, thank you.
All right, so yeah, that's a little bit lower on the agenda as well. Any other questions on the thoughts around that? Okay, excellent.
You're all done?
Yes, I will
For now.
hand back the
For now.
presentations. Yep.
Okay. Let's go to board reports. Finance, Shayna?
Good evening, Vice President Jarinas and members of the board. I did hand out this evening an updated schedule of our outstanding loan balances. So that should be before you if you would peek at that. I'd like to report that almost all of our loans are current. There's only a couple of exceptions. We're still trying to collect on the couple of Moxie loans and then the Arrowhead motorcycle loans. The demand letter that Andy's office had sent out was demanding payment from Moxie by this last Saturday, May 10th. It sounds like that we did not receive the payment, so they will continue to pursue getting collections on those notes as well. Iron Range Restaurants LLC started their amortization schedule on May 1st. Red Rock Hotel also started theirs on May 1st. Mike's Pub did finish the last of their plumbing. She had come in and requested a change to the scope of the remaining funding to draw her loan down. And she did finish that and came in under the amount that we had approved of $50,000. So she did ask to amortize it for a little bit less. So she's starting principal and interest payments on about $45,762. So the rest of that would go back into the loan fund. We just recently received the loan documents for the Howard Court properties. That's in our deferred loan program. So we're just going through those and getting those executed. The bottom right corner of the schedule, you will see that I did update it a little bit. Instead of having it kind of summarized in one total amount, I did do it by fund this time. So the cash balance in Fund 250 at the Heda Economic Development Revolving Fund is $982,578.27. We've committed to Iron Range Management $144,373.30. We're still going through those loan documents. So that leaves us a balance of $838,204.97 in that fund. The Fund 420, which is the Heda Storefront Renovation Fund, that has a cash balance of $212,043.29. We don't have any open commitments in there that we've approved, so there's still cash to lend in there of $212,43.29. And then for our deferred loan program, that's Fund number 422. We have a cash balance in there of $224,60.93. We've committed $75,000 to the Sunrise Bakery, $61,429.20 to the Howard Court, leaving cash available to lend in that fund of $87,631.73. And then the life insurance policies are listed there with what's available, or how much we've lent and how much the life insurance policies are for. Does anyone have any questions on the schedule for me?
Mr. Vice President?
Yes.
Sheena, looking at the Fund 250 and Fund 420, you and I have talked about combining those over time. Do we have any loans outstanding in that Fund 420 right now?
Just the one in the very middle of the schedule. You'll see we had, there was a one for 101 East Howard. That's one of Rich Lee's loans. That one was issued under that fund. It was actually set to be done in January of 2022, but that was one of those ones that had a balloon, and the board had authorized amortizing it for the remainder. So there is a balance of $24,283.10 on there. It was issued out of that specific revolving loan fund. So I don't know if there's something we have to do to change that, Andy, if we wanted to just merge the funds together.
And the rationale for that is our loan fund guidelines do not have two different, types and terms and those sorts of things. The guidelines are all the same. So it would make sense to administer from one fund instead of managing two.
Currently, we've been issuing all the loans out of the Fund 250, the Economic Development Revolving Fund, and we've had enough funds in there to do so. So we've been using the loan fund guidelines that we approved, and then we've been issuing them all under the same umbrella.
So, Sheena, on Rich's repayments with respect to that one, if it's being, are they going to stay in the 420 fund, or are you, as he's paying that back, is it going back into the 420 fund?
It does right now, yes.
Okay.
All of the principal and interest goes back into that fund.
So something we'll run past the finance committee and maybe bring you a solution for at a subsequent meeting. All right?
Thank you, Sheena.
Yep, thank you.
Betsy, you're up again.
Okay, so I just want to run down this agenda to address which items we can actually address tonight and which ones we're going to have to hold. So item A seems to be fine. There's no financial impact. B, it's a request to approve the foregoing rent. That also has financial implications. We're not spending any new money, but we won't be taking any in. What say you, Attorney Borland?
Because we're not making a new financial commitment that way, I think you're probably fine to take that one up, actually.
Okay.
Do that one? All right.
Okay.
Item C, I believe we'll have to move to a subsequent meeting. Item D and E, I would say the same thing. And then F is to apply for a grant, G is also applying for a grant, and then H is a non-financial commitment as well, so, okay. All right.
Excuse me, Betsy, is this something we'd want to discuss these?
I can give you some updates, we just can't take action.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to not at least discuss them,
Sure.
even if we don't make a decision on it, but I think it would be good to discuss them, and then as soon as we can get together, make a decision.
Okay. One item that I will note is these items are also on the subsequent city council agenda, which is next Wednesday. So we have to take action on these prior to next Wednesday. Otherwise we'll have to shift it on the next Wednesday, and that means we can't close on some of these things, so.
All right.
Yeah, they're very timely at this time. Okay. So item A then is to consider the KA request to amend the scheduled completion date to July 24th, 2025. You heard Todd's presentation tonight. So at this time, I would request approval of that particular schedule date.
Vice Chair, I'll make a motion to amend the schedule.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
Vice Chair, I support that.
supported by Member Cameron. Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Excellent. Item B is to approve the request from Hibbing Parents Nursery School to forego rent payments at 2810 Diane Lane until they vacate the building at the end of the 90-day notice period, which is July 15th, 2025.
I'll make that motion also. I support that. We've put them in a tough situation.
And I would support that as well.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk, supported by Member Cameron. Any discussion?
Mr. Vice President, if I could just comment. Further down in this document, you'll see there's a lease discussion. So part of that lease discussion is that, at least per what information Betsy had to give me to work as a draft for your consideration, is that I believe Heda is going to ask them to be responsible for the utilities with regard to the building until they're gone. The way the lease is drafted right now, it says 0 monthly payments, but it does say as additional rent, you are going to pay the utilities. So you may want to qualify the comment when you say no foregoing rent, foregoing a monthly set amount, recognizing you still might hold them responsible for utilities if you accept the draft. That's the only reason I bring it up now.
Yes, correct. They would be responsible for occupancy costs for the building, not necessarily paying rent over and above.
Right.
Okay.
My question then, was their utilities rolled into the rent fee? I mean, a lot
Yes,
of
it
people
was.
do that. This is rent includes utilities. Was there separate or was it rolled in?
It was all rolled in.
Okay. So do you want an amendment?
Is that what we're looking for? That, my motion would be to,
Would you say to forego additional rent payments?
Over and above maintenance and utilities.
Yeah, occupancy costs or,
Yeah.
yeah, maintenance utilities.
very good, I accept your statement to my amendment.
Any other discussion?
Member Cameron would also have to approve
Oh,
the
yes,
amendment.
you need to.
Oh, yes, I would like to support the amendment to his statement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the original was made by Mayor Hyduk. The amendment was then, and it was seconded by Member Cameron.
Right.
Then the amendment was,
Also made by Mayor Hyduk,
okay,
and
and
with,
it was supported by Member Cameron. Any discussion now? No discussion, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Excellent. So item C is a request then to approve the interfund loan resolution to add 402 East Howard Street to the redevelopment district in the amount of $500,000. That would accomplish the purchase price plus any potential demolition costs or securing a potential demolition grant from the IRRR is going to be my request. So, you know, this would allow us to pay ourselves back, pay the taxpayers back for any expenses incurred upon at that 402 East Howard, in addition to the rest of the 400 block redevelopment. The second item there is to approve the resolution to City Council to request the $275,000 from the Land Acquisition Fund to purchase that building. And then the third item is to approve the purchase agreement, which has been negotiated with the current owners of 402 East Howard in the amount of $275,000, keeping in mind that if we cannot close by the end of this month, the $275 negotiation price for them probably goes up because they're absorbing continued costs to keep that. So I would have to go back and renegotiate. Their term on that price amount was if we can close at the end of May, this is the amount that they would accept. So that is how the purchase agreement is written, which is why the timing on this is particularly tight.
Mhm. Do you feel like we're on schedule, though, to be able to close by the end of the month?
If it can be approved at council next Wednesday.
Okay.
So either what we're looking at the end of this week or Monday of next week at the latest, we'd have to have an early morning Heda meeting.
Mhm.
Well, and depending upon what we have to move around for folks' schedules, I mean, it might be 7 a.m.
Well,
You know, so, just keeping in mind that
Right.
I know, you know, most folks' schedules now are kind of booked, for
Mornings
those
are usually
particular
pretty
things,
open, so.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure that out, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on those three items? All right, so at this time, Attorney Borland, do we have to table those items, or can we just, I mean, because we didn't amend or delete anything from the current agenda, so do we have to have a move to table C, D, and E to a special meeting?
probably a motion to table, but then you need to take them up at that meeting. If there's a debate, then the item dies as it sits.
So how do you propose moving them forward? I mean, they're on the agenda was approved as
Yeah,
presented.
I would just elect to take no action on the items, so they're still fresh for you to
Okay.
take forward in the future.
Okay, so I don't need an official motion to
Right,
take no
right,
action?
'cause
Okay,
you're not gonna
perfect.
take, I'm just
Right.
recommending you don't take action on them at all, so it leaves
Yeah.
you a little flexibility, whether it's a special meeting or when you can schedule it.
Perfect, excellent, okay.
Thank you.
So then item F is a request to approve the resolution to request funds and accept, if awarded, from the Department of Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation Community Development Partnership Grant Fund for the historic Android Ballroom renovation project. The amount of EDA funding, if awarded, would be $3,750, or $3,250.
So you want a motion for that one? Mr. Vice President, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll support.
support, okay.
Yep.
Motion made by Member Hoffman Sockman, supported by Mayor Hyduk. Any discussion on this?
if I may.
Yes.
I will bring back the WIDSEF agreement for services at a subsequent meeting when we do have an agenda, because that, or when we do have a quorum, because that one is committing us to spending funds, but the resolution to apply for the grant at this time does not, so we'll continue with that. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, the next item, I just have to get out the funding for that. There it is. Okay. So the next item, G, is to request to approve the resolution to request funds and accept if awarded from the Department of Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation Community Development Partnership Grant for a shovel-ready site work on the 2810 Diane Lane property. We hired Miriam Carroll Consulting a while back to go and gather all of this and to do project management around it. In your packet is the not-to-exceed estimate for 2810 Diane Lane. She has gathered all of these costs thus far. One note that I will amend is that the not-to-exceed amount was $43,880. We're slightly concerned about the pre-demolition asbestos and hazardous material amount. So we're thinking the range would be anywhere from $20,500 to $35,000. So the total would be a not to exceed $60,000 for that shovel-ready site work. Again, I will bring that at a subsequent meeting, but I wanted to make you aware of what that looks like at tonight's meeting before we go after the grant. So half of that would be $30,000 from our EDA special projects budget. I am trying to work with the Hibbing Public Utilities to see if they would contribute to us to assist with the shovel-ready site work, because getting some of these sites ready would mean new ratepayers for them. So my hope is that we could do a third Heda, a third HPU, and a third IRRR, but I will keep you posted on what those look like as I move forward. So tonight, we're not going to approve any agreements or approve any expenditure of funds, just an application for the shovel-ready grant.
I'll make a motion to support requesting funds for
Support.
shovel-ready
Support.
for 2810 Diane Lane.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk, supported by Member Hoffman Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Excellent. And then the final item on my part of the agenda tonight is to approve the agreement with law offices of Jim Prunovich for temporary parking of Heda-owned property during the 23 3rd Street construction. I asked Attorney Borland to write up a simple agreement that we could sign with Mr. Prunovich and his law firm for the duration of the 23rd Street reconstruct. That will probably last through the end of this summer or the end of August. We wanted to make sure that he would insure it and those sorts of things, meaning there's still a foundation on there. We have it marked with tape, but in case something happens, we wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that they're using it at their own risk at this time. So, Andy, am I missing anything in that conversation?
Betsy's pretty much covered everything. I think I referenced Mr. Prunovich, his associate, his staff, and his clients, that all of them, per this, he's agreeing to hold Heda harmless with regard to any injuries, damage that might occur to them and or our property there. That's the way I tried to write it.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
So at this time, I request approval of that agreement for the temporary parking. And this is on the Old Merce Cleaners, right on First Avenue.
So Betsy, is he the only person that uses that parking lot? Does anyone from Soho ever use that parking lot as well?
I honestly couldn't tell you. We did write it, though, that he doesn't have exclusive parking there.
Okay.
I mean, it's Heda's property. It's not really a parking lot. It's just people are parking there. So we recognize that they're parking there, but we're not giving him exclusive use of it.
Okay.
So anybody could park there.
Okay, thank you.
So
I'll make a motion then to approve the agreement with law offices of Jane Prudovich for temporary parking of Heda-owned property on 23rd Street.
Okay.
I support.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk, supported by Mayor Cameron, or Member Cameron. Any other discussion? Nothing new, so we will have all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody's in favor. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, Andy?
Mr. Vice President, members of the board, within your packet, I think actually Betsy had a chance just to pass it out this afternoon before the meeting started. There's a draft lease agreement between Heda and the Hibbing Parents Nursery with respect to the property that they made the presentation on earlier in the evening. This really just contemplates a lease from, and I use the projected date of closing that Betsy negotiated for Sunrise, which I think is May 22nd. And those documents are all, we've drafted all the closing documents for that to happen. So I used that date because that's the date that Heda would come into title. And I just picked, I believe, like the end of the July, give or take, just in case there's a little bit of time frame in there. And if the time frame runs out and they're still there, they become kind of a month to month under the same terms. But it's just in here that they're responsible for their property. They're to maintain it in the interim. They're responsible for the utilities, maintenance, those things. And that's pretty much how I drafted it. It's not, I say, rocket scientists. I just make reference to the property and the legal description as to why we're doing this. So we have something in writing with them in case things break down for some reason between now and then.
So Andy, would they have to come back then for a month-to-month lease, or does it automatically happen? Or would they come back?
If you have a lease term that expires, typically that turns into a month-to-month lease thereafter if you don't come back and renew it. And Betsy's probably going to have faster updates than anyone else. So if this turns into a long-term problem, then clearly it's going to throw off Betsy's problems. But if we think we need to address something a longer term in the future, then certainly we can come back and revisit at that point.
Thank you.
Member Hoffman-Sockman, the intention is to have them give monthly updates until they exit the property once Heda owns it. And Sheena had mentioned when I was corresponding about this particular project that, do we have a lease with them, as soon as we take title? And so we asked Andy literally on Friday to draft something up. It was that quick. So we're just trying to make sure that we have something in front of you. And what we'd ask, I think, tonight, Andy, is that they approve the terms in general and allow the president of Heda to sign the lease once the closing happens, correct?
Correct, right, and authorize that it can be presented to Hibbing Parents. They haven't seen it yet, but because Betsy didn't get it till 4:15 this afternoon. So.
Yeah.
Right.
So, in this particular case, I think we've done quite a few leases. This is fairly boilerplate with all of our EDA leases where we lease out property, but, so in general, we're not changing much from what we typically do.
Well, Andy, thank you for doing this, because it was in the finance meeting that this came about, so thank you.
So we'll need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Member Hoffman-Sockman, supported by Mayor Hyduk. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Andy?
Not for me.
Okay. Discussion items. I think, Betsy, you're going to take care of these.
Yes. So at this part of the agenda now, I'm just going to give a couple of project updates. The first one is the 400 block redevelopment project update. You heard a presentation tonight. I have been working through the pre-development agreement. I sent it off to the Kilburn Group. Mr. Rothman has sent it back. I've sent it to our bond counsel on this, who has written up the pre-development agreement in the past for us to review. I wanted to let you know, I've been approached by a second developer who is also interested in that site. I sent them off the documents and let them know that we're on a very tight time frame at this time, because of the financing and the work that we've already done up to this point. So if they had something that they were ready to present in June, that would be fine. They could come and present to the EDA board, at which time then I would ask you to authorize the pre-development agreement with one of the developers that we've heard from so far. I'm not gonna allow a lot of time around that particular second developer, just because I don't want to extend this process out and leave a reputable developer who's been working on the project for quite some time to, wait while we consider too much more. So I wanted to bring that to you and just give you a heads up on that and get your take on that. Is that how you would like to proceed with?
I think that's a good plan,
Okay,
great plan.
all right. Because I just wanted to make sure that I'm keeping you all fully abreast of what's happening. I would not have had the pre-development agreement back for Mr. Rothman tonight, because it's going through legal right now. But we conceivably could have it ready for the June meeting. So, to keep this moving along, we've been working on this project for quite some time now. So we'll just keep moving that way. All right, perfect. Excellent. And we've been talking about this in enough public meetings, so, any folks who've been interested in this project could have, come and presented to the EDA or had a conversation or given me a call, et cetera. So, we'll continue working forward. Yes, Mr. Barland?
Betsy, maybe, and to be fair to the board, maybe if you put a little bit more, say, we'd like your presentation, like maybe a week before. If they're gonna come present, maybe on June 9th, or somewhere in that, whenever your next meeting is, to have the documents so that the board could see them early. So they really should have a chance to be prepared to ask them any questions if they truly wanna present.
Yep.
Just so it looks like, well, we just saw it, but we were, too late for you.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll be working through that.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions on how that's going? Oh, I wanted to give you an update. The LHB, Aaron Kelly, who I've been working with at LHB, we did a not to exceed and approved the LHB project management of the demolition at a prior meeting. We're doing a kickoff meeting and a walkthrough of the project on May 28th. So Jesse Story, Pat Green, myself will walk through it with them and have the conversation about how that demolition and how it'll be coordinated, et cetera, and make sure that they have all the documents that they need ready to go. I'm going to ask about the 402 building at that time. Hopefully we will have been through all of the other steps and we'll be well on our way to closing at that point, but they've already been through it once. They've added it to our some standard building report. So they do have that at LHB. Now they just probably want to see what that looks like. I did not have that one surveyed and the pre-demo mitigation, et cetera, done on that particular property. So I'm hoping we can do it all at once, but I will rely on LHB to tell me what will work for them.
Very good.
All right. Second, the 2810 Diane Lane project update. You heard from the Hibbing Parents Nursery tonight about their progress and how they're making progress. I did receive a final word back from Abundant Life Church. They are no longer interested in the 2810 Diane Lane in the school site. So I wanted to give you an update on that. That makes probably the 5th individual that I've taken to that building as it stands right now to see if somebody would want to take it and redevelop it. So far, we have not found anybody that wants to take and redevelop it. So the shovel-ready project that we approved earlier tonight, we'll be looking at taking that down and replatting that all for housing. I am going to the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 19th to do the zoning amendment request. That is a requirement of the purchase agreement, which is why, to Attorney Borland's point, we're not going to close until May 22nd, because it will go to Planning and Zoning on May 19th, City Council on May 21st, and then we could close as early as the 22nd. So that's the timing we're working on with that. then what we'll do is have to separate the site to the half of the site that has the building on it and the half that does not, because otherwise the building does not cover enough of the parcel in order to go after some redevelopment funding or demo funding, because it has to cover about 90% of the parcel. So we will be doing that work as we move forward, hopefully with a shovel-ready grant from the IRRR. Any questions on next steps on that particular project? I know there's a lot of moving pieces on both of these, so I want to keep you as aware as I possibly can as we go along.
So when you say replat it for housing, are we looking at anything else other than housing? Are we going to be restrictive if we just replat it for housing?
Well, at this time, because we have to rezone it prior to taking title, I have to come up with a zoning, request.
Okay.
So I requested R3 at this time, which would allow for the senior citizen, like the townhomes, twin homes, single level living, that sort of a thing. If folks, I think we have some of those right down from the Glacier neighborhood on, is it 25th?
Yes.
Near Vic Power, across the road
we
from
do.
Vic Power. Those have been very successful.
Right,
So something
right.
maybe like that would be
Okay.
appropriate for this. But yeah, right now, it seems to make sense to extend the Glacier neighborhood.
Right.
However, once we divide the plat out, we can, if somebody comes forward with a different plan for redevelopment, potentially we could
We
consider
could do
something
that.
else.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe the site right now is planned unit development for a portion of it, and then I-1 for the remainder. And so I'm gonna zone the entire site the same way. So it won't be two different zoning sets.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. And then finally, the downtown district deferred loan program update. Sheena gave you an update on the amount that is left to lend. And Sheena, it says that we're lent out at 427,500 roughly, but then that we have 87,000 left to lend. Those numbers don't jive.
Well, the Boomtown amount isn't included because
Right.
that was transferred, so you have
Right.
to take the 100 off of that. And then there was an interest allocation, so there was a little bit of money received at the end of the year in interest income to the fund. So that's the difference.
Not interest from the loan borrowers, but interest from where the fund is sitting?
Right, because there's
Oh.
money in the account that's earning interest income
Oh.
at the bank.
Nice, okay. So we do truly have 87,000 then left in that fund for a project?
Right.
Okay, so as we've been going through this, the final report hopefully will go to the IRRR at the end of June. I've been working with a couple of different folks. Hopefully they will come for a loan application for the remainder of that funding, and we will be fully lent out of that first $500,000 in that deferred loan program. So then what that would leave us with is, do we apply for additional funding and set some of Heda's cash balance to match again into re-upping that for another 500,000? Or would we pivot this a little bit to allow for a couple of larger projects? That Android Ballroom reconstruct could be one of those projects. There is a potential at the Hillcrest on First Avenue could be one of those projects. That's a very large building. I've been trying to get a developer interested in that. I've taken probably 3 different folks through that building as well. On the 4th, they are looking at it and are interested. So I'm hopeful that we could work a project with them. One thing to note is that the gap on that will probably be more significant than the $75,000 or less that we've been doing on all these other smaller projects, right? So I'd like to consider pivoting that a little bit, maybe having some funding for some smaller projects, but then allow for 3 larger projects as well. Because there's also somebody interested in a redevelopment project for the old MDI building on 4th Avenue. And they've been getting their costs together, and that's about $1 million project as well to reposition that building. It's been empty for, I don't know, a decade.
Yeah.
Also in our downtown. So those 3, I'd like to try and, put a little impetus around and a little focus with those folks who are willing to raise their hand and pick some of those larger buildings. What are your thoughts on pivoting a little bit, allowing some funding to go forward with a couple more of the smaller projects, but then potentially doing a few larger projects with that?
What have we done traditionally? I mean, we've stayed within a certain amount, we've capped what we would give.
We want to be a third of the project, right? But also we've said with the deferred loan, we'd like to be 75,000 or less to make that funding go as far as possible.
Yes, right.
You can see that we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 projects so far. If we do one more with the remaining 87,000, that would be 10 projects in our downtown. That's a great way to leverage that funding as far as possible. We had planned to do a minimum of 7 projects. We've made that goal. But the Android project, the MDI, redevelopment of the MDI and the Hillcrest, they would be such large projects that it would be difficult to use only 75,000 in the deferred loan. We could definitely do EDA revolving loans, all of those other sorts of things, right? But I'm just wondering if you'd be open to a little bit of a pivot on that to incentivize some of these larger buildings that nobody's signed on to renovate for, they've been sitting there for quite some time now.
Betsy, what I'd like to see is basically a written proposal of what you are talking about now, so we got something to visibly look at and to consider.
Yep.
I mean, I can't disagree, I don't disagree at all with your philosophy of the bigger projects carry a little more weight and maybe should have a little more investment. But I'd just like to see everything in writing so we could take a look at it, discuss it, and then tweak it, whatever we'd have to, and then make a decision.
Right, I didn't want to bring a written proposal to you without having sort of given you a heads up that this is something I'm considering and get a little bit of buy-in around that, and then I'll work it with Andy and Sheena, the finance committee, and the projects, kind of look at it. I've been having them gather total project costs already, just to see what those capital stacks would need to look like. Remember when we first did this deferred loan, we looked at a capital stack for the mirror renovation and looked at what could be needed in there, and she needed roughly in that $50,000 mark. Sammy's Pizza needed a little bit more, they needed the 75, right? So we kind of made that our range, sort of. We'd go lower, but we knew that most folks doing a project of about 1,500 square feet on one level would need about 50,000. Sammy's was a bigger project, Boomtown was a bigger project, so they did a little bit different, but I'm thinking that this might be a little bit more significant. One thing I do want to mention too is, Sheena, I asked Josie then to get me the cash position, and it looks to me like we have roughly 373,000 in Heda's balance sheet that is undesignated Heda funds.
Are you talking in Fund 255?
Yeah. So I think that's what, we would bring that balance sheet back to you as well, show you what the cash position is, what we do have available to commit to that. But then at that point, if we're using another significant portion of our undesignated Heda funds, we'll have to look at, are we done doing large projects then with Heda funds, or are we going to look potentially at our levy and start talking about requesting from City Council an increase to the EDA levy to continue doing what we've been doing for the past 3 years. So all of this is kind of preparing for budget talks. We've been spending down some of that undesignated because we had it sitting there, and there's no sense in having money sitting there if you're not deploying it for your community. Why collect a tax if you're not deploying it? So we have been working on that for the last 3 years. But at some point here then, if we decide to do this next project, those, that cash balance might be, or the undesignated balance might be all committed, and we'd have to consider, what the budget looks like, what the request looks like to City Council. All right? Any questions about something like that?
So Betsy, are you gonna have something to us then for our next meeting in June?
I think the new cycle opens up in July for the IRRR. I've already been talking with them about it a little bit. we have a meeting with them later this week
Right.
to have continued discussion on it. I'll see what their appetite is for what amount, you know, they'd be willing to do. And then I'll have that back to you all. It might be June and July that we're working through this, process, through this discussion, workshop type meeting. But yeah, I'm thinking by July, we would have the pivot, sort of roughed out and approved, and then, and a resolution to go apply for funding in the next round whenever they open it up.
Well, we definitely, I think, want to be in position for the best leverage we can get for the maximum amount of funding that might be available. I mean, we're crazy not to piggyback what we can do if funding is available, so.
And we're definitely, I mean, based on all of the things that the comprehensive plan, strategic plan, everything that the EDA and the council have been doing for the last 3 years has really been focused on making sure we're putting some attention and love into that downtown. And, you know, this is one way we can continue to do that with some of the larger buildings that haven't seen any of that investment for quite some time. So hopefully we can come up with a way to work with some folks to do some things on those projects. Excellent. All right. All right, and so, Mr. Vice President, that is the end of my, my items for tonight.
Tired. Okay. Before we adjourn it, does anybody have anything else?
I think we need
Discuss.
dates, don't we, when we can meet?
Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, we should come up with some dates.
You mean to
Possible
follow
dates.
up?
Yes.
Well, I think,
Our special meeting.
we need one more person, and we've got 3 missing. So if we know when Sherry's back, we know when John is back, and we know when Mike is back, they're all, it's either gonna be the end of this week, or it's gotta be by Monday, Tuesday at the latest,
I think
because
Sherry was-
Wednesday night is our council meeting.
What about 4 PM right before the council meeting? I mean,
4 PM what day? Wednesday?
yeah, Wednesday, the 21st.
Works for me.
I mean, that's usually hard for Sherry, so that's difficult, but the counselors would all be planning to be here, correct?
Well, if we had to have an early meeting, I gotta believe Sherry could get there. I mean, if a person can go on vacation, they sure should be able to get to
Yeah.
an early morning meeting.
Well,
Well,
typically, she's the only person in the shop at that
Yeah.
time, though,
Right,
that's
so that
unfortunate.
was
That's-
Yeah,
that's
so she'd have to shut
yeah,
it down,
sure,
but,
right.
but to your point, Mayor, earlier, we only need one more person to have a financial quorum, so if John could be here, or Member Egan could be, you know, one of those 2 folks, I think we could.
Well, is everybody here that's sitting here now flexible?
Yes, well,
Not for the rest of this week, I'm not.
Yeah, that's-
not for Monday from noon on, I'm not.
I
But
can
in the
work
morning
it
I
into
can
my
be
here.
schedule.
Is morning better than afternoons? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Mhm. Early.
Yeah, early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. It could be
8 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
I'll be here then.
Well,
7.
I won't have my makeup on if
Yeah.
it's 6 o'clock.
The sooner the better. Let's, I mean,
Sooner.
reach
Yeah,
out,
yeah,
see
yeah.
what John and where Sherry are, and Mike should be back, I'm hoping. He got delayed his flight from Orlando, that's why.
So, back to your point though, Betsy, at 4 o'clock before the council meeting. Does that work for anybody?
When's council meeting?
Well, that works for me. My only
That works for
concern
me.
is you're putting all your marbles in
Yeah.
one time, and if someone doesn't make it, we've
Well-
missed that council meeting.
Yeah.
That's my concern with 4
Yeah.
o'clock on Wednesday. I would love that, because,
Well, and
But-
so what my thoughts would be is I would send that out as the preferred time, see if I can
Okay.
get 5
Yes.
folks, you know, because I'm also thinking of our lovely HPAT folks who, you know,
Mhm.
probably can't just jump to whenever
Yeah,
we
sure.
can have a special meeting at 7 AM or some such, right? And I don't know, we'll have to talk to Ron and make sure that even 4 o'clock would work that night, but,
That's the 21st.
yes. Yep, so that would be the preferred, and otherwise I will just find a time when I can get at least 5 of you in the same room. And we have to have 3 days prior to that as well, Andy, right? Because we have to publish a special meeting.
Yeah, so it's the 3 days before.
21st
Yep.
at 4.
So if it's Wednesday at 4, would it have to be Monday morning we'd publish, or would it be Friday we'd publish?
Prefer you do it on Friday.
Okay,
Wednesday would
So-
be nice if we can
Yeah.
get that to work and tie it all into one day.
okay, all right, so that's what I'll be working towards, and I will keep you all, and I'll send out a meeting notice too, to you all, so that you do get it right into your calendar.
4 p.m., okay.
All right.
Okay, now, any other discussions, questions? Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
I would like to support that motion.
supported by Member Cameron. Meeting is adjourned.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Good.
Thank you.